Hey guys, if you've decided to turn back the clock on aging, or even if you're just thinking about it, then I believe that nutrition is the single most important aspect of your lifestyle that you absolutely must do correctly. And by the end of this video, you'll be on the path to learning how to do nutrition right, or at least the way I do it. If you're a middle-aged man, or even if you're a little older, and this is a topic that is of interest to you, then please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the button below. My name is Lance Hitchings, and this channel is a record of everything that I've learned, the conclusions that I've drawn, the techniques that I've decided to implement based on those conclusions, and the results that I've obtained from those techniques, all in the quest to turn back the clock on aging. If you want to turn back the clock on aging, then there are two areas that you cannot afford to ignore, and those are exercise and nutrition. And in this video, I'm going to be introducing the subject of nutrition. I'm going to be talking about some general guidelines that I followed in my own personal regime. Now, I'm going to be starting this discussion way up high at the 60,000 foot level, but I'll be delving into much more detail in subsequent videos. In this video, I'm going to be laying down some guidelines that I use when deciding what kinds of foods I eat and how I shop for them. I'm going to be talking about how and when you should prepare your meals, how you should store them, and how often you should eat. I'll also be discussing both macronutrients, which include carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and water, and micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. I'll also be touching on supplementation. And finally, I'm going to be talking about some types of foods that you should avoid. Now, I'm going to be talking in broad strokes here. I'm not going to be talking about specific foods that you should be eating, but rather just some general guidelines. Okay, so first off, you want to be eating whole foods and organic whole foods when possible. But what are whole foods? Whole foods are pure foods like meat and fish and fruits and vegetables from your garden. Nothing that has been refined or processed or pre-cooked and pre-packaged. Nothing that comes in a box or a can or a package or a bag. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. Whole foods can be canned, like beans, for example. I'm sure most of you guys are not going to want to soak beans overnight and then boil them for an hour just to get them cooked up. Just make sure that when you buy canned beans or any other canned product, that the ingredients say like beans and water. That's it, nothing else. You want to be avoiding all of the preservatives and the food coloring and the chemicals that are included in processed and refined foods. Not to mention the synthetic hormones and pesticides and antibiotics that are included in the raising and growing of foods by the food industry. So just whole foods. So as a rule of thumb, when shopping for food at the supermarket, I tend to stay away from the center of the store, where all the chips and snacks and boxed foods like Hamburger Helper are located. And I do my shopping along the outside edges of the store. So sections like produce, the bakery, dairy, the butcher. Now, I do make an exception when I go into the organic section of the store, but I still make sure that I only purchase whole foods. You should be buying whole foods and making all of your meals from scratch, rather than buying foods that you just heat up in the microwave or on the stovetop. Like I said, you should be preparing your meals from whole foods that you cook yourself from scratch. I know it's a lot more work, but those processed, refined, and packaged foods are a huge part of why your testosterone is so low. So what I do is I go shopping and prepare my meals once a week, all at once. Then I take my prepared meals and I package them up myself for the upcoming week in glass containers. Glass containers, not plastic. That way, when I want a meal, I can just take it out of the refrigerator and pop it in the microwave or put it on the stovetop and heat it up, just like I used to do with junk food. I like convenience just as much as the next guy. Now, you might also want to consider detoxing and fasting. Toxins have built up in your system from all the years of eating junk food, and you want to get rid of them with a good detox. So I'll be covering that in another video very soon, so watch out for that. As I'm sure you've already heard, science has demonstrated that there's a definite link between calorie restriction and living longer lives. Now, nobody wants to starve themselves, but the same benefits of calorie restriction can be derived from fasting, particularly intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, or IF, it comes in many different forms, and I'm also going to be doing a video on that subject in the near future, so watch for that. But in a nutshell, intermittent fasting is when you fast every day for a period of between 16 and 18 hours a day, and then you eat during a window of 6 to 8 hours. So what I do is I fast from midnight until 6 o'clock the following afternoon, and then I do all my eating for the day from 6 to midnight. That's how I do it, but there are a number of different ways to do intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is also beneficial for weight loss, as well as a number of other areas that are of concern to the aging man. Next, let's talk about macronutrients, the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates that provide the energy that fuels your metabolism and the building blocks that are required for the protein synthesis that repairs and rebuilds tissues. Macronutrients are so called because your body requires these nutrients in macro or large amounts that can be measured in ounces and grams. So let's start with fats. The subject of fats is really complex, and guess what? I'm going to be doing a whole video on just the subject of fats in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. Suffice it to say that fats are not as evil as we've been led to believe, particularly if you're trying to naturally boost your testosterone production. High quality fats are absolutely essential to the production of testosterone. But you need to stay away from low quality fats like vegetable oils and trans fats, and stick with high quality fats like extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, and grass-fed butter. Stick with those and you'll be fine. Moving on to carbohydrates. Stay away from simple carbs like sugars and fructose. Simple carbs and refined sugars can cause your insulin levels to spike, and high insulin can cause inflammation, which is really bad for your testosterone. It can also cause metabolic syndrome, which is a cluster of conditions that can include high blood pressure, high blood sugar, insulin resistance, excess body fat, abnormal cholesterol, and type 2 diabetes. Because of the high levels of fructose, I tend to really limit the amount of fruit that I eat, particularly if I'm trying to lose weight or boost my testosterone production. I tend to go with the complex carbs, like root vegetables or cruciferous vegetables, but I stay away from grains containing gluten. Gluten can cause chronic inflammation, which is really bad for your testosterone production. Protein. You need the amino acids that protein-rich foods provide, particularly if you're trying to bulk up on muscle tissue. But be careful. Too much protein can be detrimental to your testosterone production, believe it or not. So I try to eat between 3/4 of a gram and a gram of protein per pound of my lean body weight per day. So for me, that's about 125 grams to 165 grams of protein per day. Now, I want to talk to you about drinking water, which is considered a macronutrient. I'm sure you've all heard the old saw about drinking at least 8-ounce glasses of water per day, or about a half a gallon. As it turns out, that recommendation is entirely arbitrary, and there's no science to back it up. Having said that, drinking 8-ounce glasses of water a day is not a bad recommendation. Thirst is the best indicator of when you need to drink water. I'm sure you've also heard that drinking coffee or tea doesn't count because caffeine is a diuretic. Well, the diuretic effect of caffeine is so weak that it really doesn't make that much difference. So you can get your hydration from drinking coffee or tea. Micronutrients are those nutrients that are required by the body in small or micro amounts, and they're measured in micrograms and milligrams, things like vitamins and minerals. And even though they're only required by the body in minute amounts, their role is just as critical as the role of macronutrients. While macronutrients provide the fuel and the building blocks that allow the body to function, micronutrients control and regulate a large number of bodily functions. They're critical in the synthesis of a large number of enzymes, which in turn regulate a large number of bodily functions. For example, there are a large number of both vitamins and minerals that are critical to the production of your testosterone. And if you're deficient in any of them, your testosterone production is going down. There's also a large number of vitamins and minerals that most Americans are critically deficient in. And it's not a bad idea to get tested for them by your doctor to find out whether or not you are deficient in any of these vitamins and minerals. And once again, I'll be doing a video on that in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. Now, this kind of goes with the previous guideline on micronutrients. There are a number of substances which can include vitamins and minerals that you're deficient in, but also chemical compounds that are beneficial to both your health and your well-being. And you should be supplementing your diet with these substances, because many of these substances are very difficult, if not impossible, to get in sufficient quantities in your diet. Now, I'm talking about vitamins and minerals here, but I'm also talking about things like protein powder, creatine, ubiquinol, fish oil, which contains omega-3 fatty acids, and a host of others. Suffice it to say, you need to supplement. And guess what? I'll be doing a video exclusively on the subject of supplementation in the future, so keep an eye out for that. Which brings me to my final guideline. There are certain foods that you need to be avoiding in your nutrition plan. If you're trying to naturally boost your testosterone production, then you need to stay away from foods that cause chronic inflammation and from foods that are estrogenic or that contain estrogen. Chronic inflammation can raise your cortisol levels, and that can be deadly to testosterone production, as are high levels of estrogen, which can be triggered by estrogenic foods. Now, I'm going to be putting out a video on why nutrition is so important to boosting your testosterone levels. So watch that for more details on these foods. Also, avoid anything that is toxic, not only to your testosterone production, but to your general health as well. I have thrown away all of my plastic containers and I've replaced them with glass containers. I've also thrown away all my pots and pans that are coated with non-stick coatings like Teflon. A lot of plastics and non-stick coatings will leak a type of toxin called endocrine disruptors into your food. And endocrine disruptors are not only bad for you, but they will absolutely destroy your testosterone production. So, as always, I'll be doing a video on just the subject of endocrine disruptors and their role in destroying your masculinity in the future. So keep an eye out for that. Like I've said, this is a hugely complex subject. And in this video, I've chosen to deal with it in very broad strokes. In subsequent videos, I'll be diving much deeper and going into a lot more detail about certain specific aspects of nutrition, like intermittent fasting or detoxing or supplementation. So keep an eye out for those videos. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button. Share it with your friends and on your social media. Thanks for watching, and till next time.